Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Awesome Titanium Life podcast. Today, I'm talking about your business, and I have a question for you. Would you drive your car without a gas gauge? And if you didn't have a gas gauge and you were driving your car, let me ask you, what would the driving experience be like, and how would it be different than the current way that you drive if you have a gauge? Now, by the way, if you have an electric car like I do, you still have a battery gauge, right? So, without that gas gauge, what would driving be like if we just took that out of your car? Well, if you've ever had your gas gauge go down on you, you know what it's like. Here's what happens. Number one, you're constantly worried about your gas. You never know if you have enough gas to get to where you need to go, and you never know when you're going to run out of gas. So you always have this constant worry and fear in your mind. And what typically ends up happening is you have to get gas a lot more often. And you have to come up with other ways of tracking how much gas you have in your tank, right? Because you don't really know, but you know kind of how far you've driven. So if you drive the same roads, you start going, okay, well, every 3 or 4 days I need to get gas, let's say, right? But then you can't wait 4 days, because if you wait 4 days, guess what? You might get stranded on the side of the road. So you're getting gas now every 2 days to be safe. So you end up being worried about it all the time. And God forbid if anything happens when you go off of your normal routine. Then what happens is you're getting gas all the time. You're getting it more often. And I guarantee you're still going to run out of gas at some point. Because no matter what you do, you will screw up, you'll forget, something will happen, something will change, and you'll run out of gas. Isn't it crazy? Like, it worries you more. You get gas more often, yet you still run out of gas. Now, let me ask you this. For how many of you does this sound like the way you run your business? See, you're constantly worried about things, whether it's the finances, it's about making payroll, it's about sales numbers, it's about delivering for your clients, or whatever it may be. You're constantly worried about these things, and you're putting in more effort than you should, yet you still fall short every once in a while. Yet still there comes a time where you don't have enough money in the bank, where you don't make enough sales, where you don't close enough business, you don't get enough leads, whatever it is, you're still struggling to get the end result, yet you're worried about it a lot. You're worried about it, in fact, constantly, and you're putting more into that area of your business than you should. So what's the answer? See, the brilliant people who developed a car put a dashboard in there. And in fact, in my book, The Business Bible, I actually have a dashboard of a car in there because I talk about this and I say, make your business kind of like your car. See, when you sit down in your car seat, you have in front of you a beautiful KPI dashboard. Now, what is KPI? KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Some people call them vital factors. It doesn't matter. When you go to the doctor, they have vitals that they take on you. As a person who has a background in medicine, I can tell you, you go to the doctor for whatever it is, a broken bone, you're sick, whatever it is, instantly, they take several vitals on your body. Okay, these are your KPIs. They take your heart rate, they take your blood pressure, and there's a third one that they take that you might not notice, but they take your breathing rate. So when someone gets to the hospital, that's what they do. And then, depending on what they see there, they may or may not do additional tests. Now, there are reasons they pick these three things that I'm going to share with you in a minute, because they're not just randomly picking these three things. There's a lot of other things they could check for, but they start with these three because, number one, they're very, very easy and quick to track. Okay, that's the number one reason. There are a lot of things that would be better. Like, for example, I remember being in medical school and they were like, look at the patient's breathing rate. And I was like, why would you look at the breathing rate? Well, because you want to see what their oxygen level is like. And I was like, why don't we just take an oxygen saturation test? They're like, because to do that, you need this instrument and it takes, a couple of minutes. And breathing rate, you can just observe them while they're walking or they're standing. Or as they're talking to you, you can watch their chest rise and fall, right? And why, for example, pulse? Well, it's because something you can quickly take with your hand. Why blood pressure? Well, even though it requires an instrument, it's so quick and easy to get that it's worth it. Now, what happens if someone's breathing rate looks off? What happens if their blood pressure is off? What happens if their pulse just doesn't seem to be where you need it to be? Now you can take additional tests. Now you can do an oxygen saturation test. Now you can do x-rays. Now you can do all these other things. See, of course, it'd be great if every time you went to the hospital, they took a full MRI of your entire body, did x-rays of your entire body, forget all the radiation you're getting. Imagine how much time that would take, how much it would cost, and 99% of the time they wouldn't find anything. So they're not just going to randomly start doing these things on you. So in your business, you have to think of it the same way, because a car, for example, has given you a beautiful KPI dashboard. As you're driving, what are the different things that you need to see? Well, it's really nice to be able to see your speed, right? In most cars, it's nice to be able to see your RPM, so you can see how fast the engine's going. You can see how much gas you have. And then there are these other gauges, as some of you may not have ever even noticed if you're not into cars. But if you're into cars, you know them and you look at them. But I bet you if any of these gauges are off, you know. For example, the temperature on a car. Most of you don't actively look at the temperature on your car, but it's still there. Because the one day that the temperature of your car goes out of whack is the day you're going to get stuck on the side of the road or burn your engine. So see, it's there. And what they've done, these brilliant people who've developed cars have done something that's unlike what you've done in your business. They've made these gauges to be really smart. So take your speedometer, for example. See, what they've done is they've put numbers there for you to see things, but they haven't put every single number, right? You have bigger numbers possibly at 0, 10, 20, 30, 50, so on and so forth. And maybe a number like 100 or 75 or 65 or something like that is bolder or bigger or a different color. And then your RPM gauge is literally color-coded, right? So you can see when you're getting into those danger zones where you could be damaging your engine. It tracks all of that. And then your gas gauge is awesome. Why? Because it tells you how much gas you have. And then if you get to a certain level, a light goes on. In fact, in some cars, in addition to a light coming on, it even starts beeping at you. How freaking brilliant is that? Isn't that why most cars don't run out of gas? Now, some of you, even with all those indicators, still have run out of gas in your days, okay? We got to have a talk because apparently KPI dashboards aren't working so well for you. But the thing is notice people typically don't run out of gas. 99.9999% of the time, people do not run out of gas. But how many businesses go bankrupt? Isn't that interesting? More businesses go bankrupt than cars running out of gas. I guarantee you, if you look in any city, in any country, in any given year, more companies go bankrupt than cars running out of gas. Yet there are a heck of a lot more cars on the road than there are businesses. Isn't that amazing? Well, it's because most businesses aren't operating with the KPI dashboard. See, car engines typically don't burn unless you do something really stupid. Cars typically don't run out of gas. Cars typically don't have their temperature go up so high that the whole radiator or something burns. These things don't happen. Why? Because you've got these indicators, key performance indicators. And now some of the newer cars will tell you how your brake pads are doing. A light goes on that says your brake pads are at 20% or whatever. But even in the old cars, isn't it interesting? They still had a KPI indicator for brakes, right? That screeching sound. That is a KPI. That is a key performance indicator that your car has. So as your brake pads wear down, it starts beeping at you. It starts screeching at you, and it's an annoying noise. They made it annoying on purpose. And so you go and you get your brakes changed. Right now, it's interesting because in some of those cases, they make it start screeching quite early because, of course, they'd love to sell you another set of brake pads. But let's keep that conversation for another day, right? So some cars, what you have is they tell you the tire pressure on your car. And if your air gets low, it tells you. I mean, all of these are these incredible things in your KPI dashboard, your key performance dashboard. And I told you the medical example. So now let's jump into your business. In your business, you need to have a KPI dashboard, which gives you the most critical numbers that you need. Now, as you're building your KPI dashboard, I want you to keep checking your car, see what kind of KPIs your car has, and then go back and try to recreate something similar. Because what most of you will do is you'll try to track way too many things. See, in a car, there aren't that many KPIs. It could be tracking 1,000 other things. But it doesn't. See, it tracks only the most important things. And then things are represented in different ways. You can't represent everything in the same way. Something like the seatbelt not being on is just a light, is not a gauge, it's not a number. And if you don't put your seatbelt on, at least in my car, at first it's just a light. But then you start driving and it starts beeping at you. So there are levels where this sort of the KPI indicator changes the way it talks to you. And then you have your speedometer, that's a gauge. You have something else like your radio. Right? It's a number that displays what radio station you're on. And if it's on or if it's off, it's a red light or a green light, something like that. That's what you've got to create for yourself. You've got to find the most critical things in your business. And if you don't know where to start with 3 things. If there were 3 numbers that you could get on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis, and all you could get was 3 numbers, what would those 3 numbers be? Then if you want, expand it to 5, but start with those 3. Get those 3 first because most of you aren't even looking at those 3. So get those down first and then you can dig deeper. Now, here's the way that you should want to run your business. I have something called the Run Your Business from an Island test. If you can pass this test, it means you can run your business from an island, right? And I'm not talking about an island where you're working all day. I'm talking about an island where you're relaxing most of the day. And out of 24 hours in a day, you are only working for about 10 minutes on most days. And more importantly, this remote island is so remote that you literally only have 1 minute of internet access each day. And that 1 minute of internet access comes in 2 30-second increments at 8 a.m. and then at 8:09 a.m. Okay? So what happens is this. Let's play this game. Every morning at 8 a.m., you have 30 seconds of internet. And then you don't have internet for 9 minutes. And then at 8:09 and 30 seconds, you get another 30 seconds of internet. And my challenge to you is to run your entire company. And let's assume you have 100 employees. Ready? Go. How do you do that? Well, one way you can do it is by having a brilliant KPI dashboard. Now, you have to have systems set up. So for the entrepreneurs and the artists, hey, you might want to find an operator to help you get the system set up for this first. But once you have your system set up, now the key is this. You should be able to, in those first 30 seconds of internet service, you should get your KPIs sent to you. Now, if you're trying to run the entire company, you might need a few more KPIs than just 3. But you should get all the KPIs. And when you look at the KPIs, it should be the big KPIs first, because you only have about 9 minutes to analyze all of this information. And so what you got to do is quickly analyze it, meaning you get the KPIs in those first 30 seconds. Then within about 45 to 60 seconds, you should be able to analyze that data and decide what needs to happen. And you're going to spend the next 7 or 8 minutes figuring out what needs to happen in reaction to what you saw in the KPIs. Now, hopefully you don't see anything big and it's like, hey, great work. That's all you got to say back to your team. But in other cases, you're going to need to give them guidance based on what you're seeing. Like, they need to do this. They need to do that. They need to make cuts here. They need to do this with the leads here. They need to start focusing on this more or that more. Or you can request more data. That's the big one, right? And I call it dig here. What it means is this. See, on a treasure map, there's a spot that a treasure map tells you to dig. Your KPI dashboard is doing the same thing. All it's doing is saying, hey, dig right here. That first set of numbers that comes, those first numbers are there to tell you where there may be an issue and where you might want to dig. And then if you need additional details, you ask them to send you additional KPIs. So what you end up having is multiple layers of KPIs where the little stuff rolls up to the big numbers. But you don't look at the little stuff every day. You only look at it if there's something in the big ones that's off, right? If a red light goes off, something happens, now you dig deeper. So you tell your team, hey, I need stuff on all these little things, right? You request that and they send it to you during that second 30 seconds. And now you've got the rest of the day. I know you're on your island and you want to just relax, but now you're going to take the rest of this day and you're going to work on figuring out what you need to do to address those issues. And that's the island test. If you can pass that test, it means you have finally graduated, my friend, from being a business operator, someone who's in his or her business every single day grinding away, to truly being a business owner. Because wouldn't you like to be able to go to an island every once in a while? Even if your island is right in your office, you just don't want to have to work on the day-to-day, right? I'm not trying to tell you you have to move to an island. Maybe you don't want to do that. Fine. But wouldn't it be nice to let your business run on its own, right? And if you want to grow, wouldn't it be nice if certain aspects of your business are running on their own while you go look at other aspects, but you can still keep an eye on those older places that you used to be in every single day. So if something goes wrong, you go right back into it and find out what's going on. That is what's critical. So today I challenge you to develop yourself a KPI dashboard. And I want to remind you, go to your car, look at the KPI dashboard in your car, jot down some of the things you notice, some things maybe that I haven't even mentioned here. Then design a KPI dashboard much like your cars. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to look like your cars, although it could. I've seen ones that literally look like a car dashboard, but you can make it however you want. And at first, it doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be digitized. It could just be a piece of paper that people are bringing you, right? It could be text messages that your employees are sending you. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of having the numbers on a regular basis. And you can have some KPIs that are daily, some that are weekly, some that are monthly. But at first, don't make it complicated. Stick with 3 of the most important KPIs, key performance indicators. Get your team start providing you those on a regular basis. Then you can expand to 5, 7, 10, do whatever you need to do to develop that model where one day you could technically run your business from an island working only from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And until that day, I want to leave you with one really important message. In your business, in your life, and in everything that you do, go out there and lead with your heart.
Thanks for listening to Titanium Life Radio with Arman Sadeghi here on the Apollo Podcast Network. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit titaniumsuccess.com/podcast.